The morning began like any other high-profile taping at The View, a full audience, buzzing production crew, and a red carpet rolled out metaphorically for Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. She arrived through the back entrance, flanked by her team, walking with her signature grace, but her eyes darted around with the caution of someone used to rooms that turn hostile without warning. The show's producers had promised a safe, open discussion about her podcast, her advocacy for women, and her post-royal life. Meghan, always meticulous about her public image, had pre-approved the talking points and assumed today's appearance would be no different from the others, direct, yet respectful. But unbeknownst to her, Whoopi Goldberg had not signed off on that version of the script. From the opening applause, something was off. Whoopi didn't smile. She greeted Meghan with a curt nod instead of her usual warm welcome. The audience, sensing the underlying frost, cheered louder, hoping to smooth over what felt like a brewing storm. Meghan started strong. She spoke eloquently about the pressure women face in the media, especially after motherhood. She shared heartfelt stories from her podcast, how one guest had broken down over postpartum depression, how another had confessed to losing her career over a viral tabloid headline. Meghan's voice was clear, her passion evident. Then came the question from Sunny Hostin. Meghan, there's been a lot of talk about your truth versus the royal family's version of events. Do you think your constant public narrative is helping or hurting reconciliation? Meghan took a breath. Sunny, I think telling your story authentically is the only way healing can begin. I'm not interested in rehashing drama, but I won't apologize for being honest about what I've endured. The audience clapped, but Whoopi didn't. She leaned forward slowly, her voice dropping an octave as she stared directly at Meghan. You say you're not rehashing drama, but isn't that exactly what you've been doing for the last 3 years? The room fell deathly silent. Meghan turned slightly in her seat. I'm sharing my experience, Whoopi. That's different than drama. Whoopi raised an eyebrow. Every time I turn on the TV, there's another docuseries, another exclusive interview, another podcast episode where you're crying about how hard it's been. But do you ever stop to think about the people you're throwing under the bus while you do it? Meghan blinked, visibly stunned. I don't see it that way at all. I've never named names. I've just told my story. Whoopi crossed her arms. That's the clever part, isn't it? You never name names, but you say just enough for everyone to connect the dots. You don't need to say, Kate, or, Charles's, the media fills in the blanks. And you know that. You use that. The comment sliced like glass. Meghan looked around the table. Joy Behar stared blankly at her coffee cup. Anna Navarro nervously tapped her notepad. No one stepped in. No one softened the moment. Meghan was completely alone. She tried to hold her composure, her hands resting stiffly in her lap. I think that's incredibly unfair, she said, her voice quivering slightly. You're dismissing my lived experience because it makes you uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable, Whoopi replied coolly. I'm just not buying the victim narrative anymore. You've had more platforms to speak your piece than most women ever will. So what's the endgame? How long do we have to feel sorry for you? Gasps echoed from the crowd. A few people in the audience looked around awkwardly, others raised phones, recording, tweeting, posting clips live. Meghan turned away for a second, biting her lip. A tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. I didn't come here for this, she said, barely above a whisper. Then, the camera caught the exact moment the pain overwhelmed her. Her shoulders fell, her eyes filled, and for a second, just a split second, she looked like the young actress she used to be, crushed under a world far crueler than she'd imagined. Producers immediately cut to commercial. The screen went black, but backstage, the storm only worsened. Behind the scenes, the tension was electric. Why didn't anyone stop that? Meghan snapped at her team, her voice raw from holding in sobs. Why didn't anyone warn me? Her makeup artist rushed in with a tissue. You still look fine. Meghan's voice, once composed and measured, now carried the weight of every betrayal she had ever endured in silence. Today reminded me why women, especially women of color, often don't speak up, she said, addressing both the hosts and the audience. Because when they do, they're told they're too emotional, too dramatic, or seeking attention. She paused, trying to steady her breath. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her knuckles white. But I refuse to let anyone shame me for speaking out. I've lived through things most of you could never imagine, and I have every right to share my truth. The studio was silent. Even Whoopi Goldberg didn't interrupt this time. She sat back in her chair, arms folded, mouth pressed into a tight line, not smiling, not frowning, just watching. Joy Behar tried to break the tension with a forced chuckle. Well, we've certainly had our fair share of fireworks this morning. But it fell flat. Meghan turned slightly, her eyes still glassy but filled with resolve. This isn't fireworks. This is what it looks like when a woman stands up for herself in the face of gaslighting. I didn't come here to fight. I came here to share something I believed would help others. Instead, I was accused of exploiting my own trauma. Whoopi cleared her throat and leaned in again, but this time, her tone was cooler, quieter, almost defensive. I never said you were exploiting anything, Meghan. I asked you to look at the impact of how your story is told. There's a difference. Meghan didn't flinch, but the message was clear. Whoopi, you questioned my credibility. You implied I'm being strategic. That I'm using my experiences for fame. Whoopi raised an eyebrow. Are you saying you're not aware of how your story gets used in the press? Because whether you like it or not, it does feel curated sometimes. And when people feel manipulated, they stop listening. The tension shifted again. This wasn't yelling. It was two powerful women throwing punches in slow motion, calculated, painful, and personal. Anna Navarro finally stepped in. Maybe we all need to acknowledge the truth exists in layers. Meghan's perspective is valid, but so is the fatigue people feel from hearing one side of the story again and again. We can hold space for both. Meghan nodded slowly, her expression softening. I get that, but the world never gave me the benefit of the doubt. I was torn apart before I had the chance to speak. I was painted as angry, manipulative, or worse, and I stayed quiet for years. But silence didn't protect me. It only protected the institutions that hurt me. Applause trickled in from the audience. A few people stood. Meghan glanced over at Whoopi, waiting, maybe hoping, for even the slightest sign of empathy. Instead, Whoopi looked down at her cue cards. The segment ended moments later with Joy thanking Meghan for a passionate and honest conversation. The camera panned to the panel, the applause music rolled in, and the screen faded to black. But the real explosion happened after the credits rolled. Backstage, the show's executive team was in crisis mode. Phones rang non-stop, tweets, clips, and hashtags were flooding the internet in real time. Within minutes, hashtag Whoopi vs Meghan, hashtag The View Meltdown, and hashtag Meghan Tears were trending globally. TikTokers were already cutting together reaction videos. Commentators from every corner of the media universe were picking sides. Meghan sat alone in her dressing room, her hair being unpinned by her stylist as she scrolled through Twitter. Her phone was blowing up, texts from Serena Williams, Oprah, even Chrissy Teigen. Most were messages of support. One just read, "You handled that better than I ever could." She sighed and set the phone down. Her publicist entered the room. "We need to release a statement. Now, keep it concise, professional, and dignified." Meghan nodded. "I'll write it myself." Meanwhile, on the other side of the studio, Whoopi stood in the break room with her arms crossed, speaking to one of the senior producers. "Listen," she said firmly, "I didn't attack her. I challenged her. There's a difference. You want us to just sit here and nod every time a guest spins a narrative." The producer rubbed his forehead. "No one's accusing you of anything, yet. But it's going viral. Her fans are angry. This could blow up." Whoopi scoffed. "Let it blow." And blow it did. That night, The View was the lead topic across every late-night panel and entertainment site. CNN ran a headline, "Daytime Showdown. Meghan Markle breaks down after on-air clash with Whoopi Goldberg." Social media lit up with think pieces, memes, and battle lines. Some praised Whoopi for saying what everyone's thinking. Others dragged her for being cruel to a vulnerable woman on live television. But the most haunting image wasn't what was said. It was the screenshot, Meghan, mid-tear, lips trembling, mascara smudged just beneath her left eye. That image, raw and unfiltered, became the symbol of the day. Some called it manipulative, others called it brave. The following morning, Meghan posted a single message on her official Instagram. "Greater than, yesterday was hard. But I will always choose honesty over comfort. Thank you to everyone who reached out with kindness. For every woman who's ever been silenced, you're not alone." The comments exploded with love. Celebrities reposted it. Activists praised her courage. The post reached 10 million likes in under 5 hours. In The View, the producers scrambled to do damage control. Whoopi remained silent on the topic, refusing to apologize. But the tension was far from over. Whispers of Meghan possibly launching her own video response began circulating. A sit-down with Oprah again. A follow-up podcast episode titled, "The Silence After the Storm." And the viewers, they were hooked. In just 24 hours, a daytime talk show had become the center of